This is WFMY News 2 at 11.
He was the kind of man that I cared about impressing by doing the kind of job that broadcasters of that era were trained to do.
And he did it with style and professionalism. The Piedmont community mourns the death of Charlie Harville tonight, a man who was the best in sports today. Good evening, I'm Sandra Hughes. Frank Fraboni has the night off. Thanks for joining us. It is with sad hearts that we remember a sports legend tonight. Broadcasting pioneer Charlie Harville has passed away. He was one of the first to broadcast WFMY News 2 and the first to bring sports to our viewers. His impact on the sports world landed him a spot in the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame. Charlie died at his home tonight after a long illness. WFMY News 2's Leonard Simpson remembers his outstanding career in broadcasting.
Fame, I will see scores of men and women whose sports careers I followed over the years.
The broadcaster inducted into the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame didn't even want to be a broadcaster at first. Charlie Harville's first love was baseball, but he says he didn't have the talent for it.
Tonight, the Giants and Dodgers play in at San Diego.
Broadcasting was his second choice, and he gave it his all. Charlie began that career 64 years ago covering Thomasville Tom's baseball on radio. Until last season, Harville hosted a pregame radio show for the Greensboro Bat Memorial Stadium.
He'd come down each night during the pregame things, go through the dugout, talk with the players and the coaches and the managers and the people associated with the game. That enthusiasm and that wonder of the game was apparent from the very beginning.
If you're a NASCAR fan, consider this. Charlie Harville was one of the first bringing the racers' stories to a television audience.
How many pit stops did you have to? Just gas. And I was looking at them a while ago. They looked to me like they're in pretty good shape. Run 500 more miles.
Not only did he interview the racers, he became their friends. In fact, Charlie made a lot of friends, those he met in person and those who invited him into their homes for years to talk sports.
This is a man from whom I learned most of what I know about doing whatever it is I do on television, except sports.
That was the ultimate compliment coming from one broadcast pioneer to another. Observations about the medium that brought him the most success.
At one point, I thought, this is a pretty trivial thing I'm doing, isn't it, Lee? Being on television, talking to people. But I reconciled myself to the fact that I was telling people things they wanted to know.
He was the kind of man who taught a lot of us how to look into the camera and talk to people. I mean, talk to people and talk with people.
The broadcaster, the author, the World War II veteran, the friend. Charlie Harville said it best with the words he chose to end each and every one of his sportscasts.
I say thanks to you, because from the bottom of my heart, I do thank you for being there all these years. And because I don't know when I'll have another opportunity to do so, I say to you now, in the best way that I know how, I mean you when I say, and that's the best in sports today.
Arrangements for Charlie will be announced tomorrow, and we will pass them along to you. Charlie Harville was 83 years old.
Funeral arrangements are complete tonight for a broadcasting pioneer who passed away. Charlie Harville lost his battle with cancer last night. The legendary sportscaster was one of the first to broadcast from the studios of WFMY News 2. His impact on the sports world landed him a spot in the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame.
Man, he was a disciplinarian, but he didn't cut you any slack. And it was a good thing. He had principles.
Relatives have requested a private funeral on Tuesday, but there will be a public memorial service Tuesday from 4 to 7 at the Bryan Enrichment Center at Bryan Park. Charlie Harville was 83 years old.
The Piedmont says goodbye to a legend in sports broadcasting. WFMY News 2 Sports Director Charlie Harville are gathering at this hour to remember Mr. Harville. Harville died Friday from lung cancer. His professional career spanned more than 60 years. He reported on and became friends with some of the most famous in amateur and professional sports. WFMY News 2's Leonard Simpson spoke to those who knew him best.
To me, it's missing a good friend, a supportive friend.
If you recognize the voice or the face, that's because Max Meeks is a Piedmont broadcast pioneer, a man who met Charlie Harville 54 years ago. Both veterans of High Point's WMFR radio, the two reminisced about the early days of radio a few years ago on Meeks' show. Harville says Max was a man who cherished friendship.
To me, that's the main thing that I will miss, just the personal contact, the relationship, the friendship that we had. The fact that I knew that if he ever needed my help, he'd call. If I needed his help, I could call on him.
I've never heard anybody in my life say one word that wasn't good about Charlie Harville.
Carson Bain, former mayor, former chairman of the GGO golf tournament, remembers Charlie as a man who loved what he did for a living so much that he never considered it work. That, says Bain, is a lucky man.
It wasn't a put on or it wasn't a job. It came natural to him, just like reporting might be natural to you. Sports was his first love, and it showed.
Bain and Harville were childhood friends. As difficult as it is to let go, he and Meeks say Charlie's passing not only leaves a void in their personal lives, but a profession that will miss the contributions he made, but will forever feel his influence.
Charlie Harville represents an era of sports and broadcasting, and the reality that that era has come to an end is just pretty hard to realize. But you know, it's happened. It happens to all, but it's one of those things we hate to see happen with Charlie.
Charlie Harville worked at WFMY for more than 25 years, starting his career at WFMY News 2 in 1949. Charlie Harville was 83 years old.